And fentanyl remains the deadliest drug threat facing the U.S. right now.
Drugs laced with fentanyl are often sold on social media sites like Snapchat and are disguised as something else.
It was an overdose of fentanyl that caused the death of Prince. That powerful painkiller is on the rise in New Jersey.
During the time that I've been given to share my testimony here, I think it's important to note before I start that in these 5 minutes I'll be speaking that somebody in the United States will die of a drug overdose, and it is almost a 72% chance that during those 5 minutes it will be fentanyl related.
Police are still investigating the shocking overdose of 5 women at a New Jersey mall this week. Just another example of the fentanyl crisis here in the tri-state area and across the country.
We are seeing fentanyl in our community. Although Hunterdon County over the past few years has been acknowledged by many different outside agencies as being one of the safest and one of the healthiest communities to raise your children, to live, to work, even though we have that distinction, we are not immune to the opioid crisis. Now, in the current landscape, when you are purchasing a drug, you really have no way of knowing what is in it. And what we're finding is that every drug that's being purchased, for the most part, contains some amount of fentanyl.
When we look at what's in the drugs, when they get to the lab and are actually analyzed, the results are scary. Almost every drug that goes, each type of drug has fentanyl in it. What we're seeing now is heroin. What people believe to be heroin doesn't even have heroin in it. It's all fentanyl or another synthetic type opioid.
Fentanyl is a very potent opioid. It's 100 times more potent than morphine.
The opioid epidemic is ever-changing. The drug dealers are adding synthetic opioids like fentanyl, xylazine, carfentanil into the drug supply.
Counterfeit pills are a major problem, not just in Hunterdon County, but throughout the nation. And what you think you might be taking is you're taking more than that when you take these pills.
The teenagers of today, their drugs are cut with fentanyl. So you can't even be a weekend warrior. There's no, in my opinion, safe street pharmaceuticals. And they're very convincing. The way that the dyes, they press them, they're just loaded with fentanyl. It's turned into something that's really dark because you're seeing teenagers just die.
So you think when you move to a good area, your kids won't have access to drugs. But now drug dealers are using social media and it's in their bedrooms. They're accessing it on Snapchat, they're accessing it on Instagram, and then they're paying for it with their phone as well. So we've taken away the street corner. They're coming right into your home.
Social media is such a part of our lives today. And really, whether it's middle-aged people, kids, it's being used, and it's also being used to facilitate the drug trade, whether it's how they communicate to arrange purchases or get the information to buy counterfeit pills or other types of drugs.
Drug dealers are, cutting their heroin with fentanyl for a couple reasons. One, because it's saving them money because it's dirt cheap coming in, over from China. So it's saving them money, and then it's causing people to overdose and die.
Every single day in the United States, over 200 people are dying from fentanyl, which is the equivalent of a Boeing 787 plane crash. If a plane crash was happening every single day, we would be doing more about it.
If one drop of this stuff could kill like a pack of elephants, it's not because your kid or you are bad people. It's because you've been poisoned with fentanyl.
As a prosecutor, as a member of the community, as a mom, what I would say to the youth in the community is there is no room for experimentation. It is simply too dangerous. When the DEA says one pill can kill, it's the truth. Life is too precious, and your family and those that love you are too precious to take that chance.
Hi guys, so I decided I'm going to do a recording of I Want to Hold Your Hand on the ukulele. This is my first one, so here it goes. Yeah, I'll tell you something.
Katie was a bright, beautiful, interested, smart child who loved music, who was the Girl Scout, who was the field hockey player, who was the softball player, who had two parents, who had a life where she came home and ate dinner as a family and went to church on Sundays. And yet that choice still happened for her. She struggled with depression. She struggled a lot with jealousy from other children. And she struggled with bullying. And so she had a lot of struggles with that. And so then she would try to overcompensate in certain areas. I want to be the best at this. It was always about having to prove herself, I think, to say, I'm normal.
I would say I'm a normal guy, born a normal, healthy child, and grew up in a small town, Belvidere, New Jersey, which is near the Delaware Water Gap, doing a bunch of normal things like a boy would, riding my bike, playing sports, little rambunctious but pretty smart kid. Got a lot of A's, did well on my tests in school. Pretty extroverted, I would say, by all metrics, just an average happy kid. The first time that I remember drinking, I was 11 years old and we were on a family vacation. And there was these bright colored little shooters that are flavored, like flavored vodka. Super enticing for a little kid, blueberry, whatever. I had no idea that it was alcohol. And I drank some, and I liked the feeling so much that I drank the next 7 or 8 vials of that. And I remember that was almost a religious experience for me. Because when I really look back and analyze that, there was a lot of internal chaos that I'm sure a lot of kids feel. I'm not good enough. I don't like how I look. I'm comparing my family to someone else's family. I don't like who Dylan is. And I didn't realize at the time that when I drank that alcohol, I felt completely in the moment in myself. Like I could finally exhale and just be okay as I am.
I found out about her drug use from her directly. She said, Mom, I'm addicted to these pills. And in my naivete, I said, all right, well, let's just stop. She decided to quit school play. She had gotten a lead role, which she was very proud of, and then decided to quit to go to this outpatient program, which unfortunately is where she gravitated towards the negative people that even made the drug use progress. And she was due to go to Montclair. She had gotten into John J. Cali School for singing, and she was very excited about that. And I had gone away for the weekend, and she took my car, and she was already really into the pills and had relapsed. And she crashed my car. So I can recall her going to a party at college and us getting a phone call about 2 a.m. that friends had to rush her to the hospital. And that was where I had found out that she was now switched from pills to heroin.
The one chance at college was not successful. I showed up to a lot of my classes drunk and high, and it was a complete failure. I was using so much Xanax that I was falling asleep at class. I was going home and cooking food, and I'd leave all the burners on, passing out, drooling. Even at 19 years old, in the prime of my life, I was unable to function. So I tried recovery at first when I was 19, and I was sober for 2 years. And it was a success by definition because I wasn't on any mood or mind-altering substances. But yet I was the most depressed that I had ever been in my life. I thought that by removing the alcohol and drugs that I would be better, but that wasn't the case. I was 19 years old and I was smoking cigarettes for 16 hours in my bed. I was urinating in bottles and just ashing cigarettes on myself because I felt so little that I didn't even want to leave my room. And what it was is an inability to have an intimate connection with the moment. And it's no wonder that I had a love affair with drugs. I felt very much alone, and so the relationship with drugs and alcohol increased. And then it turned into heroin. And then it turned into smoking crack and using drugs with my father. Then it turned into using with girlfriends. And those last 2 years were the most horrendous. I was intravenously using fentanyl with my father, with my girlfriend. I was using methamphetamine intravenously, 60 pounds underweight. I would use drugs to the point that I was awake for 6 days and my body was shutting down and my feet were turning into clubs. And I wasn't eating food. I was hearing people that weren't there. I understood how good people can end up in a situation like that because they're using against their own will. I don't believe that my parents or myself were born into the world like that. I think that we're suffering from a disease.
She was so excited to be pregnant. And she even verbalized as how this gave her a purpose to want recovery and to want to stay sober. And the relapse was in the form of meeting up with an old friend to show off Julian after a meeting. It's interesting, my last day with her was here at the beach. And after spending the day on the beach with her, she gave me a hug and said goodbye. And I just had this very nagging feeling of dread. And my husband Mike and I heard a low tap on the door, and he opened the door. They asked, "Do you know Katie Smith?" And he mentions to me that I let out the most primal scream he had ever heard. It was just a sense of, she's really gone. This can't be happening. 3 days after that they said that the baggies that they found with her was heroin laced with fentanyl. And that hit me a gut punch to the stomach of, my daughter was murdered.
I've lost a cousin who was like a brother to me to fentanyl. I've lost 9 or 10 friends to fentanyl overdoses. It's truly an epidemic that we're not concerned about enough. Looking back at the last 5 or 6 years of sobriety is incredible. I really get to be Dylan in all my weirdness. And hopefully, if I respect this gift enough, I get to help other people to be themselves as well. When you love another person and you really pay attention to them and you give them the resources that they need, you're setting them up for success. Against all odds, you could have someone come back and be a useful member of society. That's a great story. That's a cool story. I've seen it happen so many times.
I don't want her life to be in vain. I want to tell her story. I want her to be remembered. I want the world to know that her life mattered. And that now my hope is to tell her story, to help the next young person think twice before accepting that pill.
People who have cancer are never blamed for having cancer. But people who have addiction, there's a lot of times people have these preconceptions and prejudices about it, and it's sad,
And I've seen the comments on the internet or in some conversations where someone says, well, they shouldn't have been doing it. But what do you say to the parent whose kid was just taking some Adderall in college, or the kid that just wanted to experiment?
When people are struggling with their mental health, they may use substances to cope. They may use it to self-medicate. This is the time that we need to be there for each other. Have that person that you can talk to. Be there for a friend. Be there for a family member.
Talk to your parents. Trust that they're there to help you. Talk to your teacher. Talk to your coach. It's not about what will people think. It's about getting those feelings out in order to be able to say, this is not the path that I want to choose for myself.
People can't be afraid to talk about the problem, whether it's a problem they're having or it's a problem one of their friends or family members is having. If you keep it a secret, it's going to get worse. And we're trying to raise the awareness all around so that people can address it early and really prevent the problem before it becomes a major issue or a fatality.
There's stigma around harm reduction, but the reality is we use harm reduction in our everyday lives. Seat belts, sunscreen, bike helmets. These are all forms of harm reduction, and Narcan is no different.
I thank God for the people that did have the Narcan, who did save her life multiple times over.
So every community member should be carrying Narcan. Narcan is an opioid reversal, and with fentanyl and other synthetic opioids being put into all drugs, you never know when someone's going to overdose. And so if somebody in the community can save that person, you're saving a life. And here's the thing, if it's not an opioid overdose and you administer Narcan, it cannot hurt that person.
In order to address this as a community, it takes every part of the community. For people to really fully access all of the resources that are out there to help with this crisis, we need for them to feel comfortable accessing them. So for example, when you're at the county fair or at the Shad Fest or one of the many, many festivals in our county, people need to feel comfortable going up to the table, and if there's naloxone being provided, going ahead and picking up a box, even if they think they'll never need it. Feeling comfortable going up and talking to people at the Operation Helping Hand table and speaking to the recovery coaches and learning more about what resources are out there and what they can do, even if they're not struggling with an addiction or struggling with this individually, someone in their life is.
Every single person in our community can help us to face fentanyl. How can we do that? We can talk to our doctor about alternatives to opioids when we have to have a surgery or a minor procedure. We can clean out our medicine cabinets. We can get Narcan trained and carry Narcan with us. And then we can also safely store medications, alcohol, and marijuana in our homes so our kids do not have access. We need to monitor our kids' use on social media. But we all need to come together to solve this problem.
I think when we talk about it takes a village to raise children, I think it also takes a village to battle with this epidemic of drug use and addiction.